Hello and welcome to the webinar Introducing the Seeker, Bridging Service and Informational Gaps for Immigrant Professionals. My name is Paula and I will be presenting today. This presentation is dedicated to service providers who serve immigrant professionals. We want to share this tool that we developed to aid you in your service to your clients. Before we get into it, I want to acknowledge that the Immigrant Education Society is located on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region. This includes the Blackfoot Confederacy comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. It's important to remember that even working in the immigrant sector, we have a role to play in reconciling with the Indigenous people in Canada. I want to also recognize the people who have contributed to this project, including our partners, the University of British Columbia, the University of Michigan, and then you see our TIES contributors in the center there. So the Seeker came out of the project ROSPI. ROSPI is Remote and Online Services for Professional Immigrants. It is an IRCC-funded initiative through the Service Delivery Improvement Stream. The purpose of the project is to leverage existing technologies to provide online and mobile-friendly services for immigrant professionals. We define immigrant professionals as individuals who have immigrated to Canada possessing expertise, qualifications, or specialized knowledge in their respective fields. They most often arrive via the economic stream of migration. So as I mentioned, out of the ROSPI project came the Seeker. It is an immigrant professionals knowledge and empowerment hub. It is an innovative, open access informational hub committed to aiding the immigrant professionals as they integrate and transition into Canadian society. We will be diving deep into this website that we created, but if you'd like to access it now, please scan the QR code. I want to talk about the development of the Seeker, how we created this informational hub. The informational hub is built on this thorough needs assessment. The needs assessment had 4 stages: the environmental scan, the integrated review, a survey, and interviews and focus groups. The environmental scan was a thorough web scan of all SPOs, which are service provider organizations in Canada. We identified 169. Out of those, we identified only 33 had online services targeting immigrant professionals. That totals to 80 online services across Canada for immigrant professionals. This environmental scan informed the development of the Seeker. An integrative review also informed the development of our tool. The purpose of our review was to identify the available research focusing on digital technologies in the context of immigrant professionals' settlement and employment-related needs. In our integrative literature review, we combed through academic research and identified 4 key themes. So the first is that research says, yes, immigrant professionals use digital spaces for employment information and networking. Second, research says that positive outcomes of digital services for immigrant professionals include the accessibility of digital services, that the fact that they're up to date, and the fact that they're effective. However, academic research also identifies limitations to digital services for immigrant professionals, so issues of reliability, credibility, and limited scope. Limited scope being that the resources are too generic or too basic for immigrant professionals. And lastly, academic research provides suggestions for improvement and development. So these include continually cultivating digital literacy, providing targeted programming, and hybrid modalities. A survey also informed the development of the Seeker. The purpose of conducting the survey was to collect more data beyond the integrative review of academic literature. We collected data based on digital needs, behaviors, and preferences, settlement service access, and general employment and settlement-related needs. In our survey, 177 immigrant professionals participated. These are our key findings. The first is that there is a lack of awareness of existing services. The second is there is interest in more targeted services that can be accessed online or remotely. The third is that there is a high digital proficiency and a strong preference to use digital technology among immigrant professionals. And lastly, employment needs, so economic integration, are more of a priority than language learning needs. Lastly, we did interviews and focus groups with immigrant professionals. We wanted to find out, how do professional immigrants perceive and describe their needs and experiences as they reestablish their careers in Canada? So based on our data collection and analysis, we identified the themes on the screen. So as you can see, there are themes of networking, of relicensing and accreditation, of underemployment, of expectations that weren't met. After our thorough needs assessment, we started to develop our tool, the Seeker. I want to introduce the table of contents here, and then we'll dive into actually the Seeker itself. So we have 4 key domains here. The general guide actually breaks down to establishing a career in Canada, workplace dynamics, networking, job readiness and placement, and services. This information in the general guide is applicable to all immigrant professionals and can even extend to all of your clients. The second domain is information by profession. So here, based on our survey, we chose nurses, IT professionals, and school teachers. Each profession breaks down to an employment guide, workplace dynamics, networking, and job readiness and placement. And then our third domain is by country. Here we chose the Philippines, India, and Ukraine based on our survey. Each country breaks down information for communication differences, workplace dynamics, networking, job readiness and placement, and services. And then lastly, we decided to provide even more tailored information by combining country and profession. We chose Filipino nurses, Indian IT professionals, and Ukrainian school teachers. Each of those sections breaks down into an employment guide and workplace dynamics. This tailored approach makes our digital tool stand out among newcomer information resources, offering a unique and highly relevant experience. So now we are actually going to visit the Seeker, and I'm going to show you and highlight some of the sections that we have developed. So as you can see here, this is the opening page of the Seeker. It describes what the Seeker is and also gives instructions on how to navigate the Seeker. On the left here, you see a search bar, which is very helpful if you want to search keywords or key information that you're looking for to better serve your clients. The general guide opens up into these 5 domains that I mentioned, and each one expands to a wealth of information. So your career in Canada expands to information on the labor market and reassessing your credentials or education, and then even financial planning. Workplace dynamics opens up to language and communication, professional relationships, soft skills, workplace culture, and your rights in the workplace. I want to highlight specifically workplace language and workplace communication. This page is extremely helpful because it lists workplace jargon that may be unfamiliar to your clients. So it lists terms just like go back to the drawing board, and then it provides a meaning and then an example of how that phrase may be used. This is extremely helpful for your clients to visit as they prepare for workplace culture in Canada. On the left here, you see networking expand to online and in-person networking, providing general tips on how to improve your networking, which is key to economic integration. And then you have job readiness and placement, which is all about the job search. It has a wealth of information on resume writing, preparing for job interviews, getting Canadian experience, and maybe considering alternative career pathways. Finally, there's services, which is a section I want to highlight. This is a section that may even be relevant for all your clients. So say I want to look up information on transportation. Our transportation page includes information on fare entry transit passes in Calgary and Edmonton, as well as getting your driver's license in Alberta. Finally, this page also includes information on registering your vehicle or insuring your vehicle, which is definitely helpful for someone settling in Canada. Once again, the service page is very helpful and may be helpful for all your clients that you serve, not just immigrant professionals. I want to dive into the country-specific content, which is the Philippines, India, and Ukraine. In the Philippines, I want to highlight communication differences. This is what the page looks like. They have examples of how communication styles may be different in Canada versus the Philippines. As you can see, it is a wealth of information and has specific examples. And And this also has been verified by Filipinos that we interviewed, which I'm going to talk about more later. In India, we have the same categories. I want to highlight workplace culture. Again, they talk about the differences between India and Canada and then provide specific examples. The Ukraine has also the same categories, but I want to highlight job readiness and placement. This page highlights the key differences between resume writing in Canada and Ukraine, as well as job interviews. So next we have our by profession categories or domains. For IT professionals, we have a employment guide, we have workplace dynamics, and we have job readiness and job placement. I want to highlight the engineer employment guide, which describes the steps needed to get your license here in Alberta through APEGA. It talks about credential evaluation through World Education Services, and then it also talks about alternative careers that one may consider. What is helpful about this employment guide is that all of this information is in one place, and there are several hyperlinks for further information for yourself and for your client. Under school teachers, there is also an educator employment guide, which talks about how to become a licensed teacher in Alberta. The similar information as the software engineer employment guide. extremely helpful in someone trying to understand the Alberta school system. And then finally, nurses, we also have a nursing employment guide, which talks about all the different careers in nursing. We have a registered nurse, we have an LPN, we have an RPN, we have a nurse practitioner. There is so much information here for your clients that have a nursing background in education and want to continue on that work here in Canada. And then we also have workplace dynamics and job readiness and placement here on the left for nurses, which I will let you explore on your own time. Lastly, we have by country and profession. So this is where it gets very specific for Indian IT professionals, Ukrainian school teachers, and Filipino nurses. We have a specific information on becoming a software engineer for Indian professionals. And then we have a workplace culture guide for Indian IT professionals. Something that has been helpful for the people that we have interviewed is really networking, the emphasis on networking and the information provided in this guide for immigrant professionals on networking more effectively in Canada. So we have that here. We have that in all domains, Ukrainian school teachers. We have a workplace culture guide. It is really informative and super contextual to their specific needs. And then Filipino nurses, we have the exact same information, of course, contextualized, a wealth of information on how to actually get licensed as a nurse if you're coming from the Philippines. We have a bursary for Filipino nurses, information for that. And then we have some embedded YouTube videos, which are embedded throughout the site as well. And then again, workplace culture with specific examples. That is the Seeker for you in a nutshell. I encourage you to check out our website for yourself and navigate through all the pages that we have created for immigrant professionals and for you service providers to improve your services to these clients. I briefly mentioned interviewing and testing our content with immigrant professionals from these backgrounds: Indians, Indian ITs, Ukrainians, Ukrainian teachers, Filipinos, Filipino nurses. We piloted our content among these groups and received positive feedback, and then also incorporated the suggestions they had for us. We also did a survey. Our survey, we had 112 survey participants. We surveyed immigrant professionals with a minimum of a bachelor's degree, and then they had to be permanent residents or Canadian citizens, and then they had to have arrived in Canada within the last 10 years. These were our findings. 85% of participants expressed a high likelihood to revisit the Seeker. 46% of participants found it to be very helpful. 29% found it to be extremely helpful. And an additional 23% of participants considered the information to be moderately helpful. And then 86% of respondents expressed a desire for more diverse content related to different professions and regions of origin. So these clients want more specific and tailored information, just like the Seeker provides. So as you can see, we have had an overwhelmingly positive response to our tool. Finally, we developed a toolkit, a roadmap for the Seeker. This is an electronic PDF geared to you service providers, such as employment counselors or settlement counselors working with immigrant professionals. So I encourage you to check out this tool, the toolkit, for more information on how to start using the Seeker with your clients. Thank you so much for tuning in to learn about the Seeker, the hub for immigrant professionals as they integrate into Canadian society. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at research@immigrant-education.ca. Thank you so much for tuning in.